Camera is another building block of Threejs library. So again, I will go back to the movie example where through camera, scene and actions will be captured. So camera is responsible for tracking the objects, props, actors, sets in a particular direction or in a particular position. In the same way, in Threejs, camera component is responsible for capturing the 3D props, objects, 3D primitives, lightings, casting, shadows in a particular direction and in a position. So it takes three parameters like field of view, aspect ratio, and near plane and the far plane. In the diagram, camera, in the diagram on the right hand side, right, you will be able to see vertical FOV, field of view, horizontal field of view, and vertical field of view. Vertical field of view is basically the vertical height um, at the maximum level or the vision angle in which the objects will be visible. And horizontal field of view represents the visible angle in which the objects which will be visible to the camera. So for example, there will be a restricted angle, so within the particular height, right, object which is placed in front of the camera will be visible, whereas above the vertical FOV, right, if an object is above the vertical FOV limit, then that particular object won't be visible to the camera or rendered by the camera, right? The same applies for horizontal FOV, right? So when a camera captures this object, right, all the objects, all the 3D graphics will get displayed on the systems, right? It's basically a 3D 2D screen. Even though even though the object which is there in the real world is 3D, but in the screen it will be like a 2D. So there is a particular limit, like in the diagram if you see the near plane, right, so near plane is the minimum viewable distance for the camera to capture an object. If the object is before the near plane value, the object won't get displayed in the camera view. In the same token, the object which is far behind the far plane, all right, it won't be visible to the camera viewpoint, right? So that is what the near plane and far plane value specifies here. Coming to the aspect ratio is basically the ratio of width and height of the uh, the of the device where the canvas will be rendered. It will be varying according to the device on which the 3D graphics getting displayed. It can be the desktop screen, or the mobile tablet screen, or the cinema screen, right? Or the projector. It depends upon the aspect ratio, width versus height. So all the 3D objects should be in the middle of near and far spectrum, frustum. That is called the spectrum. We call it as frustum. So it should be between the near and far. The objects will be clear and it will be get displayed in the camera. Coming to the type of camera which is available in 3G is orthographic camera and perspective camera. Orthographic camera is for rendering the 2D scenes, right? It will be like watching a 2D game over a desktop or in a projector screen or in a mobile tablet screen. Whereas perspective is similar to our eyes, which can render the 3D elements as if we are watching in a real world environment. So most of the time in Threejs library, in all the any applications, web applications, right? Perspective camera will be used. So coming to this code snippet, so as mentioned here, this is how the perspective camera will be instantiated in the Threejs library, which we will be soon see in the coding session video. So prescribed limit for field of view, that is obviously the first parameter, right? Field of view. As a default, it will be chosen as vertical field of view, which is the value is 75. And aspect ratio, windows inner width by windows inner height, which depends on the device width and height. And the near plane can be from 0.1, right, which is a minimum value, and the maximum is 1000 value. So 0.1 is near to the eye, which should be neglected. Whereas if you go for WebXR or WebAR, then we can go for 0.1. But ideal, if it is a web application, the prescribed value is 1. And 1000 is basically the larger value, but it can be for web application 1000. That is farther the point, you will be able to see the scope of the objects which are in the far plane, which is under the purview of the camera. Next, we move on to the light, right? So as in a movie scene, right, a scene gets light, get aesthetic because of the light, right? So light plays an important role in exposing the objects, characters, or sets in a movie, right? In similar way, Threejs library light component lights up the objects in the screen, right? There are 4 types of light components, like ambient light, directional light, point light, and spotlight. In the illustration mentioned in the screen, right, ambient light is like light getting emitted in a specific direction, as if it's like sun rays coming from the sky towards the earth on a particular direction, right? But it will come from one single source in one particular direction, but it will give us an illusion as if the light is getting spread across all the objects. That is called the directional light. We can take up these sun rays as an example. That is the directional light. When come to ambient light, the light will come in all direction, and it will get spread across all the directions of some objects equal. I mean, the light will be spread across all the direction of all the objects in equal manner. That is basically the ambient light. Point light is the light getting emitted from single source, right? We can take up an example of a bulb light source, where it the source will come from from the light source, but as you move out of the scope of the bulb light source, right, you will be taken away from the scope of the light. So that is an example. So as you move out, the light source will reduce, scope of the light source will reduce. This is the point light. Spotlight, the light source will come from one point in one single direction, as if it's like conical, right? As you move, right, the light source will expand. The cone size, the circle base of the cone will get expanded as you move out of the light source. That is a spotlight, right? So this is the code snippet for Threejs. Right now, an example is point light. Even after instantiating the point light, we need to set up the position and then add into the scene.